We smell things, we see things, we touch things, but does our writing do the same thing? We're going to talk about that today on the podcast, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey toward publication. My name is Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fantasy.
I'm Jamie Hirschberger, and I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. We're so glad to have everyone here, including those of you that join us in our live chat. If you have never joined the live chat and you are able to, come on over on Fridays, 10 a.m. Eastern, and give us a chat. We have a lot of fun, and there's always somebody with some really good knowledge in our chat as well. So before any further ado, we're going to get into today's topic. So this is a fun one. We talked a couple of weeks ago. What was our topic a couple of weeks ago that kind of brought this idea to you, Jamie? Do you remember? We were talking.
Oh my gosh, it's right on the tip of my
I know.
tongue.
What is the matter with me that I can't remember?
People have feelings. No. Oh, it's cold outside. Remember?
It's cold out. Yes.
Yeah.
And we talk about the weather. And so then Jamie's like, it was Jamie's idea. We should talk about about writing the census, because it's one of those things, again, like metaphor. We talked about metaphors recently too, that sometimes people are like, I don't understand what you're talking about, because it just comes so naturally to them to write that way. Same thing with writing the census. Sometimes it just comes easy for people. And sometimes it's something that you really need to work on. So we thought we would talk about that today. All right, ladies, why do you think that the senses why does that matter in our writing?
Sorry if it's not written down here, but it just came to my mind. They're fundamentally human. And I think in this age of AI and people creating things that are kind of not human, I think the humanity of the senses is very important.
Oh, that's a good one.
And I think they're very immersive.
Mhm.
Like, for example, I write books set in Alaska. And Alaska is more than sight. Like, the mountains are a sight that I would see every day, but they also had a presence that created a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a physical feeling of the mountains being there.
Right.
And so to try to express that in your writing, so that they're not just something beautiful that you're seeing, that gets something that you're feeling, like the enormity of them and the just the presence of them has, like, it makes a difference. I always say that if you go up to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, it smells like Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
Because of all the pine trees and stuff.
Right.
But the presence of the mountains is gone.
Right.
So, like, there's this difference because it's just flat. So I don't know how to express that feeling, but there is a feeling there. And to be able to get that into the writing, it's going to make people feel like they're there.
We're going to talk about how to express that feeling in this episode. But I agree. Like, if you've never lived in a cold climate, you may not understand it. But if you have, and somebody writes about the crisp smell or the crisp feel in their lungs when they walk out in a January day in Michigan, we're all nodding. We know that crisp feeling, So it's not just that it's cold. There's there's a smell to it being cold, and something that happens to us in that. So
when your nostrils try to stick together when you breathe in your nose, like,
right.
That's something you have to experience.
Yeah. Because ultimately, like, we write plots are important. If anyone in this trio is going to say that plots are important, it's going to be me. Right. I am the biggest proponent of, like, you need to plot your story. However, readers don't fall in love with the plot. The plot's necessary, but they fall in love with the experience of reading your story. Like, I would say my husband did not fall in love with my bones inside of my, like, skin and my face and my skull. But like, if it wasn't for those, he wouldn't have had the rest of me to fall in love with. Right. Like, that's kind of like my example, but so when you use certain sensory details, it turns into more, like Tina said, immersion. Like you're immersed into the story as opposed to us just telling you. Tina could just tell you what the mountains look like. But instead, you want to read about where you feel like you're staying there, smelling the mountains and feeling that enormity of what it feels like to stand next to the mountains. So, did the Bible ever use, would you say, the senses to describe things?
Oh my goodness. Let me think. Is that in the outline?
Yes, that's what I said.
I don't know. I'm trying to think.
I can see that today's going to be an episode without the outline. We're just going to go for it because.
Oh my gosh, my brain.
All right.
Well, I know that there was the use of like incense and things, but I wouldn't ever say that most of the Bible was super duper like descriptive in the way, which I think is what throws you off a little bit, because it isn't paragraphs of it felt like this or it felt like that, right? It's not like the same as what we do in fiction writing. So, but yes, there is often talk about what things smelled like in particular, and also lots of visuals, lots of descriptive things that you see, and lots of what you will hear, trumpets and yelling and things like that. And then also a lot of painful things happen, but it's not necessarily described so much, but these feelings are used in the Bible.
Right.
It evokes senses. Like, I lived in the Middle East, so when I read about Jesus going out into the desert and the devil saying, turn these stones into bread. Like the desert in the Middle East is not a bunch of sand like the Sahara Desert. It's mostly rocks. There is sand there, but it's very rocky in the desert in the Middle East. I was specifically in Saudi Arabia, but so like it evokes the feeling in me. Like I remember the heat. I remember how hard it was because I came from Alaska to Saudi Arabia, like how much trouble I had getting the air into my lungs because it felt so thick. And also it was below sea level and I would lived above sea level. So there were all these different things. But I remember how it felt to be in the desert in the Middle East. And so like that, hearing that he went out into the desert just evokes those feelings of things that are familiar. The locusts in the 10 plagues. I experienced locusts that would fly in during their migration during a certain time of year where I lived in Saudi Arabia, and they would be covering the ground like a carpet. And overnight, everything green was gone. And I had to go to school, and I had to go to the end of our street to catch the school bus. And my dad would walk in front of me, and I would hide my head in his back, and the locust would fly up like a wall in front of him.
Nightmare fuel.
Oh. Right,
and
exactly.
they would land. It was almost like we were walking through a moving tunnel because he would walk, the locust would fly over us, and then land again behind me. And that's what we had to do to get to the. So those feelings, those senses all get evoked by those stories.
Laura Jean 3 says, Song of Solomon had quite a bit of description, as does Revelation. Agreed. There's a lot of metaphor in both of those. And I would say that this is why I feel like we needed to do this episode, because I think that metaphor and the senses go hand in hand. So, all right, let's start with the first sense that we have listed is sight. Why do you think that sight is the default when we start writing? The first thing that we do is we use sight.
Well, I think in real life, sight is kind of your first sense, because you can see a lot farther than you can hear or smell or taste or touch. So you can look out and see something. And I think that because of that, in real life, it translates into our writing that we tell people what they're going to see before we get into anything else.
Right.
I think too, a lot of times when I'm writing, I'm trying to remember something that I'm familiar with. So maybe the scenery in Alaska, and I have a visual memory, right? The memories are mostly visual. And so that's easiest to start with. But then you remember that, oh yeah, it wasn't just visual. It had a presence, it had a smell, it had a temperature, it had a sound. So then you can go from the sight into the other senses.
Right. I also think too that it's a lot easier to show than it is to tell. And so I think that that's the basement level of using sight in your writing, right? Is that like you would show in your story, which we've taught before, like sometimes you just have to show, but you don't want that to be your default. So I think that if we were going to look at how to do it properly with sight, is that you have to look at specific details. Instead of just describing the entire mountain, then you would maybe only think about the white capped top and compare it to something and talk about that exact thing. Or when talking about, let's say, a person, instead of like describing every detail of this person, you would talk about his beady little eyes and the way that he looked at you, like a lizard's looks at its at a insect that's crawling unaware of what's about to happen to it.
Oh, yeah.
So that tells you everything about this guy without you having to tell him that he's like, all these other details. You pick one detail, one sight thing that you see about this person, and then you write about that. That is how you do sight well. So, okay, what about sound? Tell us about what does sound do?
I feel like it immerses. I'm sorry, Jamie, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say it can be a really good device. So you can have something like an alarm going off or a baby crying when it's first born to kind of signal that everything's okay. So sound sends a signal to people sometimes. Sound sometimes will trigger your fight or flight response if it's a particular kind of sound. So sound is really helpful for kind of setting the scenery, really, and advancing the plot.
And also it can evoke emotion. So like if you have a storm, and it's also the show don't tell thing, right?
Right.
If somebody's sitting in their cabin under furs in front of a fire in the hearth and they can hear the wind howling through the eaves,
mm-hmm.
then you know that they're in a storm. You don't have to say there's a storm outside.
Right.
Because they can hear the cause of the wind howling in the eaves and rattling the trees and that kind of thing.
Right.
Well, and to your point, where the sound can do the heavy lifting for you, you can sometimes replace dialogue tags with sounds, right? So, murmuring or grunting, or just even they're talking and there's background noise. So now they're speaking loudly. So sometimes instead of saying she yelled, sound can do that heavy lifting for you.
Right. And I love the storm, that how much I love to write storms. But I think that also sound can work subtly too. Like the conversation, like Jamie said, don't do a tag, and then all of a sudden the conversation, the person says something and stops, and then we hear a tick, tick, tick quietly in the background from a clock in the distance. Nice. That tells you a lot too. That tells you an awful lot about what is going on in the room and the conversation and the tension and like that. So, all right, let's talk about smell. Why, ladies, why is smell so strongly associated with memory? Why would you think that? Why do you think?
I don't know, but I know that smells do evoke memories and feelings. And Piper Dow, I'm in a writing group with her, and I'm getting to read what she's writing right now. And she's writing this cozy fantasy world, and they're always baking something in this there's a bakery, like it's front and center in the story. And every time she goes in the bakery, it's I said, Piper, if your books have a scent, it's cinnamon. Like, because there's always the smell of cinnamon in the air, and that gives you a sense of what it's like to be in that environment. Like the smell of dough baking and cinnamon just evokes something in me that just feels cozy.
Mm-hmm. I think that smells work too, because I think for memory is I think that the smells are unique. My grandmother's kitchen smelled completely different from I used to babysit for a family when I was in high school that was Arabic. Their kitchen had a very specific smell that I to this day don't know what that herb is, but when I walk into like a Middle Eastern restaurant, like there's all kinds of smells, but there's one smell that this woman cooked with often that I will sense, I will smell it, and I think of her immediately, you know. And my grandma's kitchen would have had a different smell. And I think that why smell works for memory and for evoking memory is that it's one of those things that it's a background scent because we smell everything. We see everything, but we smell everything everywhere we go to where I think we start to tune out smells too. Like when I get out of my car to pump gas, I know what it's going to smell like. And I think I don't even notice it anymore because my mind is already like, okay, that's a, you know, but if I got out to pump gas and all I smelled was cinnamon, then all of a sudden I would stop, right? Like there'd be something,
Yeah.
you know, so I think that we can, you know, use that as writers to think of, okay, what is it going to smell like in a way that like will resonate with the readers and will make it authentic. The fact that she's using cinnamon makes it authentic as a baker or as a cafe. Where again, if I was writing about a gas station and I tried using cinnamon, it wouldn't be authentic, right? It makes it authentic what we're writing about. It makes it feel more real.
You just made me think about the Sam's Club gas station
Okay.
here in town
Uh-huh.
because there's a KFC next door and there's a Starbucks.
Yeah.
So like the gas smell is there, but there's also like the smell of fried chicken and coffee that
So what a
kind of
great scene.
mingles into it.
Yeah, what a great scene that you can write that people will understand, they'll be able to relate to, and they're going to feel like they're at that particular gas station, whether they've ever been there or not, just by using scent.
Right.
Yeah. I also think though, when using, this is my warning for scent, every scene can't have a scent, right? Because memories, like evoking memories with scent doesn't happen all the time to us as we go through our daily lives. You have to make that mirrored in your story, right? Like,
And you know, like the Alaskan woods have a scent.
mhm.
It's like wet earth and spruce trees and the crisp, cool air, like all mingles together to make a scent. But I don't describe that every time we're in the woods in my book.
Right.
I describe it
time's enough.
once at the beginning and then hope that that evokes enough of it. So every time I mention being in the woods, they're going to remember that in their subconscious and it's going to evoke that.
Agreed. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Before
right.
we leave scent, I just wanted to say I think that the reason it's so strongly linked to memory is probably survival based because before you can really see when you're born and your eyes are still, I mean, you can see, but you don't have your eyes open a lot. You're basically kind of like flailing around. You smell your mother, and studies have shown that babies can detect which woman is their mother just based on how they smell. And so I think it's very important for our survival. And that is why there's such a strong link with smell and memory.
Interesting. All right, let's move on to one of my favorites, taste. I'm really hungry right now. I told Tina I wasn't hungry before, but right before we went live, my stomach started growling and I'm like, darn it, I wish I would have eaten. So let's talk about taste.
Well, you know, I think taste is connected to smell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you know, when you have a cold and you can't smell your food, you can't taste it.
Right.
And so when you're reading a book when there's a bakery and the cinnamon rolls are baking in the oven, like it doesn't just evoke a memory of that smell. It evokes a memory of what the cinnamon rolls with the frosting on top and they're like gooey and they're sticky and they're
tell me more.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes, 100%.
So the taste and the smell and the feeling of it in your mouth, like it all is connected.
Yes. And I think that it's very powerful because I think just talking about food can make a person hungry. Right. Which again, if we're talking about immersing your readers in your story, what is going to immerse them more than, you know, like, let's go back to Piper's books, reading one of Piper's books and then having to go to the bakery and grab something like, you know, like wanting
I need cinnamon rolls now.
I need cinnamon rolls right now. Right. Exactly. So using taste, you know, you could use it in food scenes like we talked about with Piper's books. You can also use it negatively. That irony taste that you taste in your mouth when you accidentally like get blood in your mouth, like so someone gets punched and all of a sudden they taste iron.
Mhm.
Um
It can also be a result of emotion.
mhm,
So, like,
Oh,
sometimes
yeah.
that that feeling when you get bile in your throat because you're
mhm.
really upset or
That's
you're
the
anxious or you're
worst.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that you can use it that way too.
Yeah. So for sure, positive stuff and negative stuff. But again, we're talking about immersing our readers in our story. So find a way, like, or like, let's move on before I started to go off topic. So not off topic, but I'm getting ahead of us. All right. Last one, touch. So how do we use touch in our romance novels? Just kidding.
Yes, yes.
That's the
Oh
first
boy.
Well, if
I was gonna
somebody
say something
is
inappropriate.
right, like if somebody is uncomfortably dressed, like if they're in a suit and tie
Yes.
and they wish they could be in a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt, they're gonna feel scratchy collar. They're gonna be uncomfortable. Maybe someone's shoes are too tight, and different things in your environment. You put your hands down on a table in a restaurant and it's sticky. That tells you what kind of restaurant you're in. Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
Touching a baby's cheek, the softness of a baby's cheek, like the cold steel in a surgical room. Like there's so
Oh, yeah.
many things that touch. Like you don't need to say it was a cold room. You could say the cold marble
Right.
like made my fingers ache or something like that. And like you've just described something that's going to evoke a feeling and the setting that this character's in.
Right. And I joked about romance novels because I don't write spicy, obviously. But even with the romance that I write, there's touches still involved. Like a female character touches the arm of the male character to like get its attention or whatever, and she realizes that it's much like bulkier than she thought, or more strong
Or
than she
she
thought.
feels a spark.
Right, or she feels a spark. Him touching her cheek and what that sensation does. The sensation of the first kiss. Like all touch is very important in romance and not in a nasty way. It can be done in a very sweet way. So okay. So let's talk about how using the sensory details can reveal your character. So two characters can experience the same moment, exactly the same details, but they can experience it differently because of senses, right? So how is that possible? Like what are some things that make it different for the different characters?
Well, I could use an example of a scene I wrote for my current work in progress in my fantasy world that actually got cut.
Oh.
Because it was a great exercise in writing, but it really didn't move the story forward, so I took it out. But that they were walking through the forest in a certain area of Alaska, which is a rainforest, and it was raining. And the one character who came from somewhere else where it's more dry was complaining, like she was feeling her wet boots and the soggy clothes she was wearing and the cold wet on her skin, and she was grumbling about it. And then this other character was like, what are you talking about? The rain means life. And he went into this whole diatribe, I guess, of how the rain like watered the earth and caused new life to grow. And it was wonderful. It was beautiful. So like they both had like opposite reactions to the fact that it was raining.
Because it's not only what the characters are feeling, it's also what some characters choose to ignore. Like he chose to ignore like the negative parts of rain because of just, we have to remember that every character brings in their own experiences, their own traumas, their own just backgrounds, and that's going to affect the way that their senses, somebody who has been through a traumatic event, like an assault, is going to come into a date totally differently than another person. Someone who has struggled with has a past with somebody who controlled them comes into, let's say, a date and the person's like, no, I'm going to take care of the date. I'm going to plan the whole thing, which is romantic. And many women are like, yes, a man who's going to take care of business. Another woman would look at it like, you're not going to tell me what to do, because she's bringing her own, her own experiences in. So the same thing happens with our senses, right? Maybe the smell of cinnamon reminds somebody of their grandma who was abusive to them, and they never ever want to step in a bakery the rest of their life. Right.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
What about a soldier versus a lost child, both of them in the same crowd, the same loud crowd?
Oh my goodness, I think that even their focus will be different. I almost feel like with a child, it would be more about maybe sense of touch, like running into people, wanting to reach out and grab the hand of your mother, and sound. Whereas a taller person, an adult, would be scanning the crowd for their lost person. And it has also where they're developmentally, not just because the child is shorter. It's because the child has not had enough experience to maybe even know things are going to be okay. And so they would have more of a panicky reaction.
Right.
When you said that, I thought about people that I know who were soldiers and have PTSD and get combative. Like they go into combat mode in a crowd.
Yeah.
As a child would be afraid and searching the crowd for their mother. The soldier might be in combat mode and searching the crowd for danger, for an enemy coming at them.
All right, here's another one. It's a party scene. It's a singles event, a party scene. And a young girl comes in hoping to meet the man of her dreams, and another person comes in that has just lost the love of their life through death. So what senses would be different with them?
Like, I'm going straight to sight, I think.
Okay.
Because there would be I believe the facial expression would be different. I feel like there would be excitement on the face of the young person looking for the love of their life. And I would believe there would be sadness on the face of the person who just experienced grief.
Or the grieving person would be wearing a mask of happiness or something. And so then it would get into like, your face feels a certain way from hanging on to that smile, whereas the other person's face might hurt from smiling so much. So they would both be experiencing negative emotion about the smile, but in a different way.
I think the energy would be different.
Yeah, because what if both of them, their heart is racing?
Yeah.
The beating of their heart, but there's different reasons.
That's so interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk real quick about, I know we need to start wrapping this up, when sensory writing goes wrong. What are some common pitfalls of people that are trying to write the senses in their writing?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is like, if you have a battle scene, we're not going to stop and smell the roses in the middle of the battle scene.
You can quickly, everything has to be fast. Like you can use the senses, but don't like,
When I say stop and smell the roses, I mean stop.
Right.
And like, you don't want to slow down the scene by going into a big description of what things smell and taste like or feel like. You're like, the battle scene needs to go fast. And maybe when it's over and they're like defeated and they can smell the blood or something, Then
yes. Or conversely, that's all they can do is smell the blood. Like they're just acting and not processing, to your point.
Yeah.
Like everything's you're not going to be able to even think about your senses in the moment, heat of action.
Agreed. Another pitfall is when you just want to be creative and use the senses and it doesn't really fit the scene. You have to pick and choose the scenes. You cannot take every single scene and use one of the senses. Like, because it's just going to become old to your reader and you can't, like, you have to pick and choose it. So,
and I say, don't necessarily use all the senses in one scene either.
No, 100% agree.
Complete overload.
But also on the opposite side of that coin, don't always use the same sense every time you're going to write the senses. You have to switch it up. So, all right.
I feel like, could we rank like the amount, like, so we talked about sight being like the primary, and we didn't talk about this ahead of time, so sorry for kind of springing this on you, but I wouldn't say that it's 20% for each of the senses. If you're going to say how frequently should you use these, I would say that something like taste would get maybe 5%. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed.
So,
I think that sight is going to be your number one. I think that is for sure, as a writer, we use that the most. But I think that you need to look at the other senses. And when you feel like you're using sight too much, or you're doing too much show and not enough tell, pick a different scent, or a different sense, like scent or taste, and add it in. Also, if a scene is just not working, if it just feels like it's dull or you don't know what's wrong, slow the scene down by having your character notice something, a scent, a taste, a feeling, a touch of some sort, like that. That's how you use your senses.
And I think we should always use the rules of whatever you put in there should move the story forward. So
Always.
if you're trying to evoke like you want your reader to feel what your character is feeling, and you can use a sense to do that, and it moves the story forward. Also, you need to think about momentum and pacing. Like, don't put it in something you want to move fast, because it's going to slow things down. Plus, if you need to slow things down, then think about putting it in there.
Right. Plus, you have to just get inside of your character and look at what your character is experiencing and think to yourself, what would they experience first? If it would not be smell, like I would argue that smell, depending on the war scene, I guess. I mean, you would smell gunpowder or whatever, but I would think that that might not be the first sense. Or when it's the first kiss between your two male and female character, scent is probably not the first thing they're going to notice, right? So try to make those choices as a writer,
right?
And if I'm about to kiss someone and the first thing is that I know, like, I'm not noticing anything but smell, there's probably an issue there.
If they have bad breath,
right?
Right? Yeah.
But I think, like, when the two characters are meeting in a romance, I think smell is big, because
really
she might be wearing perfume. Like, sometimes, and this is real life, like, you'll just be going about your day and suddenly you smell a really nice cologne.
Right.
And then you look for it. Right.
Right.
So that could be the reason that a woman even notices a guy where she might not have noticed him before. So I think scent could really play a part in the meetup part. But you're right. The kissing part, unless there's like, they smell like something gross while you're kissing them, then that might be a turnoff.
Hey, real quick, Sarah made it live. Yay. Glad to have you here, Sarah. All right, ladies, it's time for us to move on to the feeding of the bats. For those of you that are new here, this is a time when we share our writing. What we do every week is we choose one prompt. We all write to the same prompt. We don't edit it. We don't even look at it again before we come here and share it live for all of you to enjoy or not enjoy, depending on how badly it's written. So speaking of enjoying, Jamie, why don't you share with us what the prompt is today, and you go first.
Okay, just a moment. I'm just going to make an adjustment here, so hopefully we won't have feedback. Okay. All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We had 5 words this time: era, restaurant, laboratory, bear, and freshman. And because we canceled last week, I don't even remember this. This will be a journey for all. I was a freshman and she was a senior, and I had a crush on her like you wouldn't believe. I was clueless. She didn't even know I existed, right? Gemma tried to force her attention on the words the sweet old man and woman were saying, but her brain refused to obey. It kept leaping to thoughts about the homework waiting for her, the situation at home, the increasingly uncomfortable digestion of her lunch. Gemma, order up. I'm terribly sorry. Excuse me, I'll be right back. Gemma was careful to make eye contact and placed the palm of her hand onto the sticky surface of the table as she spoke. Oh, sure, honey, go ahead. The man's eyes remained soft as he picked up his garlic toast, but the woman put her head down and looked defeated. What's wrong with me today? Gemma grumbled. Today, Raphael quipped as he brushed past her, going the other direction and carrying a big tray of food. This is 36, Gemma, he called back over his shoulder. Thank you, Gemma said reflexively, her brain frantically calculating which table was 36. She swore and started to move faster. 36 was that four-top who all wanted sides of extra ranch. She grabbed 8 sides from the cooler, popped them into a bowl, then speed walked through the restaurant, popping up behind Raphael just as he was setting down the last of the plates. Her heart was still racing from the mild panic attack about the ranch, but she made a mental note to make sure she spoke in a calm and even voice as she set the bowl on the table. Okay, here's the extra ranch we ordered. Thank you so much for the teamwork, Raphael. Of course. Anything for you, Gemma? He turned and winked at her table. She is just the best. Gemma felt her face grow warm. Raphael always knew how to embarrass her. He was going to get it later. Gemma said to her table, "Is there anything else you can think of that you need right now?" And was delighted to receive back good vibes from each of them. And that's all I got.
That is awesome. Jamie, you write restaurant scenes like no other. You should just
You would
do
think
a
you were a
whole,
waitress or something.
yeah, you should just do a whole series on restaurant. Like whatever you do, like your characters, when you write restaurant scenes, are so immersive. Honestly, you feel like you were there. And so well done. I really enjoyed that. But I want to
And
know
I-
what go ahead, Tina.
Right. I really like how you put the senses into your writing. And I don't know if you
Oh,
did
wow.
that on purpose. Like I didn't even think about the topic of today's
Me either.
thing when I was writing, and I'm like, did I put any senses in there? So like the sticky table and yeah, the lady with her head hung down, like it just was, that made it really immersive. I think that was like a key component of that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And it's funny that I said sticky table during the episode. And like I said, I wrote this like a week ago. I must have been talking to myself.
Maybe.
I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, well done.
Thank you.
Okay, I will go next, and I got one of the words. Like I was heading somewhere and did not get there, but okay. The restaurant was far less crowded than Marnie expected, what with the buzz around Boston at its opening. But she was grateful because the lack of crowd made it that much easier for her to locate her party. The corner they sat in was dark, but not so much so that she couldn't make out the back of Mr. Boss, his dark hair and broad shoulders outlined by the candle on the table. Do places even put candles on tables anymore? I don't even know. I don't know.
Flickery LEDs, maybe.
Maybe. As she approached the table, Greg smiled. Here she is, he said jovially, as if they were great friends meeting up, as opposed to business associates forced into the same company dinner. It's about time, she heard Mr. Boss grumble. He turned, and the look of disdain turned quickly to something a bit more shocked, surprised, maybe even a little more intrigued. Marnie wasn't certain, but she congratulated herself on her choice of dress for the evening. Mr. Boss stood to greet her, standing between her and the rest of the dinner party. Mouth agape slightly, his eyes traveled down her perfectly fitted dress, the one that hid her curves just right, showed just enough skin below the hem and above the neckline to be attractive without revealing too much of what the Lord had blessed her with. His eyes returned to her face, and for the first time since she had known the man, he struggled for words. His mouth agape tried forming something like a sentence, but came out looking more like a hooked fish sucking oxygen for the first time.
Mhm.
Marnie had never felt more successful in her entire life. It's okay, she said. You don't need to say anything. I know I look good. She winked at him. Don't ruin the moment by speaking. Marnie patted him on the shoulder. She stepped around him. Good evening, gentlemen. I'm so sorry I'm late, but my boss is a real taskmaster, and I didn't get out of the office before traffic got too bad. 3, 2, 1.
Yay.
That was awesome.
Well, sight played a big factor in that scene. Yeah. I like this. So the restaurant inspired this scene. And I'm wondering what's happening and why are they there and what will be going on. And so he's not very happy with her. So this must be early on, maybe, huh?
I have no
Anyway,
idea.
you don't know.
Oh,
We're
no.
sprinting.
I was sprinting.
Well, it was really good because they had me asking questions, that's for sure.
Mhm.
And I definitely felt her victory. Like I felt that deep in here.
Good.
Got him.
I thought though that "don't ruin it by speaking" was said by him at first, which was like, then I'm like, oh no, she was
Oh.
saying it to
That
him.
would have been
And
good too.
I know, because she's like, I know I look good, blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, don't ruin it by speaking I thought. Isn't that
Yeah.
funny?
No, I'm fixing that. That's even
what I
better.
thought too.
That's even better.
That reminds me of this really good-looking guy that liked my daughter, and we were all in one place one time, and he just kept talking, and she actually leaned over and whispered to me, could he just shut up and let me look at him? I was like, the more he talked, the less attractive he became, apparently.
All right, thanks, ladies. All right, Tina, your turn.
I don't know what this is. I think it's became more of a reflection based on my Bible study and devotions this morning in Romans. Like, I don't even know what this is.
All right.
But I used all but one of the words. I need to make this bigger so I can see it. It was just like any other date night, really. Go to a restaurant for dinner, maybe a movie, but usually just went home after. The kids were all at the house, so it wasn't like we needed the alone time. Back at the house, he'd watch his shows on the TV, and I'd watch something different on my laptop, wearing noise-canceling headphones to drown out the drone of the annoying MASH soundtrack that he'd watched a million times before. Not to mention, he would recite the lines before they did, and then guffaw as if it was the first time he'd heard it. Don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining. I love my British crime dramas and the peace of not having children erupting you every 10 minutes. My daughter may be in her bluey mom era and cherish those few moments to bathe by herself, but I am in my obsessed grandma era. When the granddaughters come over, I am in my glory. I could just sit and watch them for hours. Their little facial expressions, the adorable things they say that make me laugh out loud, their little girl giggles at the most mundane things, chasing each other through the house playing tickle tag in their bare feet. However, when it's over and they go home, it's sad in the moment, but then the peace descends. I can hear the furnace humming and the ice machine dropping its cubes. I can do whatever without being interrupted. Unless, of course, my husband can't find the ketchup or his keys, or he wants to talk about stuff. I don't mind that really, although I do tease him about not being able to see things that are right in front of him. It's a different time of life, a different season, and I am learning to walk through it with gratitude. Gratitude that my daughter lives close and wants to come over every weekend with her daughter, because as she puts it, she wants her daughter to grow up knowing her grandparents, and that she hopes she'll have the same kind of close relationship with her that someday that she and I have. Gratitude that my other granddaughter lives a few blocks away, and though my son doesn't have custody, her mother is always open to her coming over to our house. Gratitude that my husband has a head for business, as they say, and tends to be successful at whatever he tries to do, as long as it doesn't require him to be able to see small details due to his eye condition. I look back at the dark years. I remember being a freshman in high school and feeling so lost, feeling as if nobody loved me, though they did. I wondered if there was love out there that could fix all the yuck I felt inside. Then Jesus showed up. I still walked through a lot of stuff, but so did he. He was murdered by religious leaders. He suffered. He was rejected. Did he ever feel unloved? Eventually, after many years, my life settled into a comfortable rhythm. I see love differently now. I see it in the many sacrifices my husband makes, in the hugs of a toddler, in the cuddles of an 8-year-old, in the grace of a savior that loves me even when I was in rebellion against him. And then the timer went off.
Wow. 15 minutes. You wrote that all in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
Sheena.
just was like, I don't know.
I will say you didn't mute your mic when you started writing. And a minute the timer went go, you're like, and I was like, it took me like a good 90 seconds to get going. I was like, and you're like, so
that's because my daughter has t-shirts and mugs and all kinds of things that say I'm in my Bluey era.
Yeah.
And so I knew right away that was making it into it.
So the word era was what gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like Jamie, the word freshman was what launched your writing. So yeah, mine was restaurant.
Yeah. Because were you going to ask something about mine? You said, I want to know about.
About the old lady. Why was she sad? Yeah. So
he was enjoying having an audience for their How Did They Meet story.
Yeah.
And Gemma had to go.
All right, so Tina, I love this. Of course I know you fairly well. So I know all the participants and what you wrote today, and just so well done. Like, you definitely, like, your husband and your grandkids and your daughter, like, I love it so much. But also, even if I didn't know you, I feel like this would just endear me to you, and I would understand so much about like what your experience is and like that. So yeah, I thought it was well done.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was some very universal feelings in there. So
Mhm.
the season of life that you're in is one that's shared by many people, and I think that you portrayed it in a really relatable way. Very relatable.
Yeah,
Thanks.
agreed.
And I was thinking, I mentioned this to you guys in our text chat, our chat text, whatever you call
Mhm.
that. This guy was talking about the how we can know the Bible is true. And he was talking about how everything agrees. Like, you have these 66 books and all these authors and blah blah blah, and it all tends to agree with each other. And he goes, you can't get 10 people in a room and have them write an essay on the same topic and get them to agree.
Mhm.
And it just made me think of these sprints that we do, and how we all get the same prompt every week, and we
Mhm.
all write something completely different.
Yeah.
Right. And when we were talking about how people experience the senses differently, I thought about our sprints.
Mhm. Yep, agreed.
And
All
I
right.
was glad that I did put senses in my writing. I was worried. I hadn't done it.
Listen, if you're hearing this and you want to do what we're doing right now too, we would love for you. That in the show notes we have the prompt, and share it with us over at our Facebook group. The link for that is also in our show notes. All right, ladies, it's time for us to wrap this up. Jamie, what is going on with you, and what's next for you?
I have a new grandbaby, and so I
Which is why
am.
we were not here last week. I was hoping you would mention
Yeah.
that. Yay.
And so I'm not going to disclose too many of the details because I'm not sure how much to or not to.
Right. No,
But
that's fine.
I'm playing grandma for the foreseeable future, which is, of course, the best thing to play, right?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
That's congratulations, by the way. Very,
Yes.
very exciting.
Thank you.
Yep.
You're in your obsessed grandma era too, so we can be buddies
Absolutely.
on that account. So is Jen.
I am. Yes.
Mhm.
Yep. All right. So for me, we had this last week was our Patreon salon. So for those of you that are not part of our Patreon, for as little as $5 a month, you can be part of the inner circle, where we once a month will there's other things you get as well, but once a month we will get together, and it used to be a live Q&A, but we were getting so much more information from our our supporters, so it's just a salon and becomes a discussion.
They're great.
There
Yeah.
were rarely any questions, but there was a lot of learning going on and a lot
Yeah.
of discussion.
So I actually have, as soon as we were done with the discussion, I went into Keep Notes and I made a list of things that I'm going to start looking at doing marketing wise, which I used to be excited about marketing, and then something happened that made me like hate it. So I'm not going to go into that right here, but I did go into it in our salon. But so I have kind of like a checklist of things I'm going to start working on. So doing that, as well as like I mentioned in the salon, I want to try to structure the Marnie story, work on outlining and like with that. So that's what my next week has. What about you, Tina? What's next for you?
Well, the girls are coming over tonight. It's Friday night, so they have that. I just wanted to mention there's this chick that keeps showing up all over my feed, and I don't know if it's just me or if it's showing up on everyone's feed. And she's saying these words: if you're an indie author, you need an LCCN, which is a Library of Congress control number. And she's trying to say that we all need it before we publish our book. Don't listen to her.
I know.
Go to the Library of Congress website and read their criteria for what they will accept before you decide to get an LCCN. They do accept indie writers' books, but they have to fall into certain categories. Usually they're unserved, like minorities or something like that, that are under served in the world, I guess is the word. That's not the right word, but that's what I can think of right now. So
This
go
is
in
making
there
me
and
so many questions. I want to know now what this is all about. I'm gonna have to go look it up.
No,
well,
yeah.
basically it's a number you get so that your book will be put into the Library of Congress.
Oh,
But they have some very strict criteria about what books they put into the Library of Congress. So go read the fine print before you go paying $125 for an LCCN.
We need to have an episode on just like the top 5 scams for indie authors, because I've had a couple of things
agreed.
show up recently too, and I just want to scream at people, do not do this, you know. And I'll save it because this is an episode we need to do, because I feel like especially Christian indies, I feel like they are targeted by some of these things. So all right, that will be an upcoming episode. So all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We really appreciate every single one of you. Again, if you would like to support us on Patreon, the link is in the show notes. We really appreciate it. We have a lot of fun over there. Sarah's over there with us. She's a lot of fun. And also, please, wherever you listen or watch this, like and subscribe. It really does. Liking this, sharing it with others makes a huge difference with the algorithm and helping us to find other Christian authors that could be part of this community. So until next time, may your pen be prolific and your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye, everyone.